Have you ever successfully lost weight, hitting your target goal after months of grueling effort, only to watch in absolute horror as the scale slowly creeps back up, despite doing everything right? You probably blame your willpower. You probably feel like a failure. You might even start the toxic cycle of starvation and binging all over again. But what if I told you that your inability to keep the weight off has absolutely nothing to do with your discipline, and everything to do with a hidden biological memory buried deep inside your brain? In this video, we are going to completely expose the neuroscience of weight loss and obesity. I am going to show you exactly why your brain violently fights against every diet you try, the shocking truth about what revolutionary GLP-1 medications actually do to your neural pathways, and how you can finally stop fighting your own biology and start working with it. Let's start by addressing the biggest lie the fitness industry has ever sold you, the idea that weight loss is simply calories in, calories out. For decades, we have been told that your body is like a bank account. If you spend more energy than you deposit, you lose weight. It sounds perfectly logical. But the human brain is not a calculator. It is a highly evolved survival machine that has spent millions of years perfecting the art of keeping you alive during famine. And here is the part that nobody tells you: your brain doesn't care that you want to look good in a swimsuit. Your brain only cares about survival. To understand this, we need to look at a tiny, almond-sized structure at the base of your brain called the hypothalamus. The hypothalamus acts as the ultimate command center for your metabolism, your hunger, and your energy expenditure. It constantly monitors a complex symphony of hormones, primarily leptin, which is the hormone that tells you you're full, and ghrelin, the hormone that tells you you're starving. Now, pay close attention to this next part, because it explains everything. Your hypothalamus operates on something scientists call the set point theory. Think of your set point like the thermostat in your house. If you set the thermostat to 72 degrees, and a cold draft blows in, the heater automatically turns on to bring the temperature back up to 72. Your brain has a weight thermostat. Over time, based on your genetics, your environment, and your prolonged eating habits, your brain establishes a defended weight. When you go on a crash diet and lose 10 or 20 pounds, you might be celebrating. But your brain? Your brain is panicking. Your hypothalamus detects the sudden drop in leptin levels and interprets this not as a successful diet, but as a famine. It triggers a massive biological alarm system. And in a moment, I will show you the exact 3 biological weapons your brain deploys to force you to gain the weight back. But first, let's look at the sheer power of this survival mechanism. Have you ever heard of the study done on the contestants of the television show, The Biggest Loser? It is one of the most devastating and revealing metabolic studies ever conducted. Researchers tracked contestants who had lost massive amounts of weight during the show. Years later, almost all of them had gained the weight back. But the shocking part wasn't the weight gain. It was their metabolisms. The researchers found that the contestants' resting metabolic rates had plummeted. Their brains had permanently slowed down their body's engines, burning hundreds of calories less per day than other people of the exact same size. Their brains were literally holding on to every single calorie for dear life. This brings us to the deep dive. How exactly does your brain force you to regain weight? Biological weapon number 1, metabolic adaptation. As we saw with the Biggest Loser study, when your brain senses a famine, it becomes incredibly efficient. It lowers your core body temperature. It slows down your digestion. It makes you unconsciously fidget less. It reduces your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. You are literally burning less fuel just existing, making it mathematically nearly impossible to maintain the weight loss without eating a starvation-level diet forever. Biological weapon number 2, the dopamine hijack. This is where it gets incredibly sinister. Deep in your brain lies the reward center, governed by the neurotransmitter dopamine. When you are at your set point, food provides a normal level of satisfaction. But when your brain is defending against weight loss, it hypersensitizes your dopamine receptors to high-calorie, sugar-laden, fatty foods. Have you ever noticed that when you are on a strict diet, a simple picture of a donut or a commercial for a burger suddenly looks infinitely more appealing? That is not you being weak. That is your hypothalamus actively altering your visual and olfactory perception. Food literally looks brighter, smells better, and triggers a much larger dopamine spike than normal. Your brain is chemically seducing you into eating. But wait, it gets even crazier. Biological weapon number 3, the food noise. When your leptin drops, your brain increases the production of a neuropeptide called AGRP. This protein acts like an incessant alarm bell in your consciousness. It creates what scientists and patients call food noise. It is that constant, nagging, obsessive internal monologue about food. What are you going to eat for lunch? What time is dinner? What's in the fridge? You can't focus on work. You can't focus on your family. The food noise drowns out everything else because your primal brain is forcing you to forage for survival. So, if your brain is deploying metabolic slowdown, dopamine hijacking, and incessant food noise, how does anyone ever lose weight? This leads us to one of the most profound medical breakthroughs of the 21st century, GLP-1 receptor agonists. You know them by their brand names like Ozempic, Wegovy, and Mounjaro. For a long time, people thought these drugs simply slowed down stomach emptying, making you feel full longer. But the truth is much deeper and entirely neurological. GLP-1 is a naturally occurring hormone produced in your gut when you eat. But scientists recently discovered that there are GLP-1 receptors directly on the neurons in the hypothalamus and the reward centers of the brain. When people take GLP-1 medications, the drug crosses the blood-brain barrier and binds to these specific receptors. What happens next is nothing short of a neurological miracle. The drugs artificially signal to the hypothalamus that the body is in a state of absolute abundance. The famine alarm is immediately turned off. But more importantly, the GLP-1 suppresses the dopamine reward response to hyperpalatable foods. The donut no longer looks infinitely appealing. The chemical seduction is broken. And that incessant food noise? Patients report that for the first time in their lives, the internal monologue about food goes completely silent. These medications have proven once and for all that severe obesity is not a moral failing. It is a biological mismatch between our ancient brains and our modern food environment. But here is the shocking twist that you absolutely need to understand. You cannot out-willpower a biological survival mechanism. Willpower and discipline are executive functions localized in the prefrontal cortex, the logical, forward-thinking part of your brain right behind your forehead. The prefrontal cortex is a battery that drains very quickly. It gets tired when you are stressed, when you are sleep-deprived, or when you are simply making too many decisions throughout the day. But the hypothalamus? The primal brain? It never sleeps. It never gets tired. It will run its survival scripts 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. If you put your prefrontal cortex in a cage match against your hypothalamus, the hypothalamus will win 100% of the time. So, what do you do if you don't want to rely on pharmaceuticals, or if you simply want to optimize your biology naturally? How do we work with the brain instead of fighting it? Here is your highly actionable, 3-step neurological blueprint to bypass the famine response and naturally stimulate your brain's satiety centers. Step 1. Shift your focus from caloric restriction to neuro-satiety. Instead of starving yourself and triggering the famine alarm, you need to eat foods that naturally produce maximum endogenous GLP-1 and leptin. The two most powerful triggers for this are high-quality protein and soluble fiber. When you consume 30 to 40 grams of protein at a meal, along with a massive dose of fiber from vegetables, you physically stretch the stomach receptors while chemically flooding the brain with satiety signals. Your brain thinks you are feasting, keeping the metabolic rate high and the food noise low, even if the total caloric load is in a deficit. Step 2. Master your cortisol. Cortisol is your body's primary stress hormone. Chronic stress elevated cortisol levels. And guess what cortisol does in the brain? It directly stimulates the release of ghrelin, the hunger hormone. It also specifically drives cravings for sugary, fatty comfort foods to quickly replenish energy stores. If you are chronically stressed, you are chemically forcing your brain to crave junk food. You must implement daily nervous system regulation, whether that is 10 minutes of mindfulness meditation, deep diaphragmatic breathing, or simply walking in nature without your phone. Step 3. Aggressive sleep optimization. This is the non-negotiable pillar of metabolic health. Sleep deprivation is an absolute disaster for your brain's weight regulation. Studies show that just a few nights of poor sleep can drop your leptin levels by 18% and increase your ghrelin levels by 28%. You wake up biologically ravenous, and your prefrontal cortex is too exhausted to resist the dopamine hit of a pastry. Prioritize 7 to 9 hours of quality sleep by keeping your room cold, dark, and entirely free of screens for at least an hour before bed. Understanding the biological roots of your behavior is the first, most crucial step toward changing it. Your struggles with weight are not a sign of laziness or a lack of character. They are a sign that you are human, equipped with an incredibly powerful brain that is just trying to keep you alive. Once you stop fighting your biology with crash diets and shame, and start working with it through neuro-satiety, stress management, and sleep, you take back control of your body. If this deep dive into the neuroscience of weight loss and the brain's biological memory changed how you view your own habits, hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, because in our next video, we are going to explore the terrifying science of chronic stress, and how it literally shrinks the memory centers of your brain. Until next time, stop beating yourself up, practice a little self-compassion, and remember that you are not fighting your willpower, you are rewiring your biology.